In 1988, I was visiting a friend. She had just moved to a new office. Laura Bond is her name. And she had a postal card on the wall that she had pinned up on her bulletin board, this beautiful concrete wall with a cork board attached to it. And the first thing she pins up is Ray Johnson's postcard, which had been sent to her, and it was the image of a heart. And in the heart was her name, Laura, and it must have been wet, and he had tipped up the drawing while it was still wet, and it was a bleeding heart. So it was this very mysterious, odd postal card, obviously hand done. You could just tell that it had been hand lettered. And I said, Laura, what about this postcard? And so she took it down from the wall, turned it over, and it had Ray Johnson's return address on it. And she said, I think you'd probably like to correspond with him. You like to collage. Ray's a collagist. Why don't you send him something? I didn't consider myself a collagist. I considered myself a display artist. I was also an optician. So my primary occupation was optician. Mm-hmm. But she knew from my window installations that I liked to collage. Mm-hmm. And so in her mind, the two of us should correspond. Right. After a year of phone calls back and forth and one meeting, the first time I met Ray Johnson was about 8 or 9 months into our corresponding through mail and through telephone conversation. The topic of I've been collecting objects on my walk. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, I'm putting things into boxes and I'm labeling them Bob boxes. So I was aware that he was gathering. I didn't know the number of them and I didn't know the size of them until he showed up in Great Neck one day in his Volkswagen, and he said in advance, will you have an automobile to take you back home? I was helping a friend at a yard sale in Great Neck. So the trunk opens and Ray Johnson takes out these, then it was 15 boxes. There were 15 boxes. And within the first couple of days he said, would you please take Bob Box 14 and Bob Box 15 to an artist by the name of Nicky Carson. So he directed me in that way. And he wouldn't just give you 13 boxes and it would be very mysterious that it's 13 boxes. He would give you 15 boxes and connect you to another person. That was the way. It was very triangulated. Usually it was 3 people he would connect in a process. And it was always engaging. It was always kind of mysterious. So I went along with it. At one point in July, he mails me, early July, he mails me a photocopy of the Declaration of Independence. And okay, so I've got this photocopied in different pieces that's all glued together and folded up, and it's the Declaration of Independence. He calls me on the 4th of July in the morning and says, can you go to John Cage's house? He's in. And could you have John Cage sign the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July?
And he did.
I did. Well, who wouldn't? John Cage knew I was coming. So the door opens, John Cage takes the image, but he's already talking to 2 or 3 other people. I think he had students visiting him. And he signs it, John Cage, folds it up, puts it in his pocket, and walks away.
Right.
So, for all I know, John Cage, well, I know he's deceased, but the estate probably still has so that was one curious moment where he would connect me. And sometimes they were longer connections, sometimes it was just a flash.
Right.
To Jasper Johns or to Jeff Hendricks, a Fluxus artist, to David Bourdon, an art critic. So it was always Ray calling up, I've arranged for you to meet, I've arranged for you to go. They're expecting you. Well, oftentimes the collage would say, the mailing, I should say, would say, please add to and send to, and sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't. Sometimes what I would do is I would photocopy it, so I would keep the original, and the third person that I was sending it to would get an edition, because a lot of them black and white Xeroxing, there wasn't always color in the Xeroxes. So I would add to, and sometimes it would be sent, received, and sent back to Ray, and then sent back to me. So it was a bit like passing off a ball in play, and it would go from one part of the triangle to another part of the triangle, and then go back from A to B to C, back to A again. Which was very engaging to see what Chuck Close would do to a silhouette head, or what Andy Warhol had done, a tracing of his hand, and what do you do when you receive Andy Warhol's hand in the mail.